Vanessa Marin is a sex therapist and instant New York Times bestselling author of Sex Talks, the 5 conversations that will transform your love life, co-written by her husband, Xander Marin. With over 20 years of experience, Vanessa is dedicated to helping people kick shame out of the bedroom and foster deeper connection, pleasure, and joy in their lives. Her work has been featured in major publications like the Oprah Magazine, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, and Goop, and she has contributed articles to the New York Times, Allure, and Lifehacker. Vanessa's approach is all about practical, doable advice, and she's passionate about helping people transform their intimate relationships one conversation at a time. Xander Marin used to work at Google, but he realized it was far more exciting to talk about sex with his wife all day long. While Vanessa is the certified sex expert, Xander brings the regular dude perspective to their work. Together, they co-authored Sex Talks, the 5 conversations that will transform your love life, and have become a relatable, hilarious duo that's all about making the conversation around sex comfortable and approachable. Xander's honest, down-to-earth insights help bridge the gap between professional expertise and real-life experiences, showing that talking about sex doesn't have to be awkward. It can be fun and empowering. Follow Xander and Vanessa on Instagram at Vanessa and Xander, and check out their podcast, Pillow Talks, for approachable and actionable tips to improve your life. Vanessa and Xander, thank you so much for being on my show today. I'm so honored to have you on the Broads podcast. Welcome.
So glad to be here. Yeah. Excited to chat with you again.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. So we've got to start with your social media content and your no BS approach to sex and just relationships in general. What is the moment in your career when you were like, we need to talk about this, just sex more openly?
Oh, God. So we've always had that desire from the very beginning. I mean, the reason that I am in this field is because I, like so many of us, had an incredibly awkward talk with my parents. And I was so struck in that moment by, like, why is this so awkward? Why can't we talk about this openly? So I've always wanted to do that. But especially on social media, we didn't allow ourselves to I didn't allow myself to do that for a very long time.
I didn't either.
Because I was really worried about coming off as professional. I wanted people to know, like, I know my stuff. I have a lot of licenses and degrees and all that stuff. But I do remember one specific moment where we realized it was time to really let loose. We started letting ourselves talk a little bit more about embarrassing stuff that happens around sex. And we started talking about farting on Instagram one day.
Someday in
it was 2020. Yeah, we were COVID, quarantine, going a little bit crazy. All right, whatever, let's start talking about farting. And people had such positive reactions to it that was really the sign for us of, I think people want to talk about this more openly and all the silly and embarrassing and ridiculous stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah, we went so long being like, because Vanessa's a sex therapist, with this topic, we just can't have a big Instagram account because no one is going to want to comment publicly on a sex therapy account. No one's going to want to out themselves that they have a sex problem or even just a little teeny tiny challenge. I mean, I think we got in our heads thinking, oh, no one's going to want to admit I have a big sex problem. The reality though is not very many people have big sex problems. People have little, just little day-to-day challenges. And we just didn't give people enough credit for being open to acknowledging that. It was as soon as we started acknowledging what our little day-to-day challenges were, or oddities or weirdnesses or whatever, then all of a sudden that opened the floodgates. And it was oh yeah, people really want to talk about this. And that was when just everything changed.
Okay, farting. Let's talk about that, actually, because I have a friend group, they've been together for 3 years and have never farted around each other. How can we tell them that it's okay to do that?
Well, okay, so farting is a really interesting topic because I do think there's one piece of it is that's a totally normal bodily function. Everybody farts. That's part of being healthy, part of our digestive system. And at the same time, I think there's also consideration around farting. And this is something that every couple has different ideas about. And this is a perfect example of something that's important to talk about. So we've heard from couples that said, I actually felt so much closer to my partner when we started farting around each other because it felt like I have this comfort with you. It feels like an intimacy with me that, that I can do this around you and you're still going to be attracted to me and still want to be with me.
It's like we're not wearing any masks anymore.
And then we have people who I'm actually like a little more on the conservative end around farting. I'm like, make a little bit of an effort to not do it around me. If it happens and it happens, that's okay. I understand. But like, let's try not to. But everybody's different and there's no like right or wrong, but it's a great conversation to have with your partner.
Yeah, I think the key is having that kind of conversation and just understanding where both parties are coming from and their sort of like fart philosophy, so to speak. Because like I think where it becomes more of an issue, where it's like the issue is not the farting, the issue is the lack of communication. But like I think this happens in so many areas, but farts is a great example. Is like people get into a relationship at the beginning. In general, people are probably trying to not fart around each other, not burp, not like go to the bathroom in front of each other, all these things. And then what often happens is you get into a serious long-term committed relationship. And it's like one partner, without ever saying anything to the other, goes, oh, well, I'm in a serious long-term relationship. I'm just going to let her rip. And like when you start doing it without talking about it or understanding where your partner's coming from, like it kind of opens the door for things to start going sideways or getting weird. Because then it's like, hey, there's a 50% chance your partner's going to be like, oh, great, I feel closer to you now. And there's a 50% chance your partner is going to be like, ew, that's disgusting. Like, I can't believe you're not having any consideration for me. And so it's like, it's so important to have that conversation so that you don't like create this narrative that goes off and it goes on in your partner's head where it's just like, oh, my partner's farting, they just don't care, they're so gross. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people get into that situation and they get years into the relationship and like one partner's like, God, I can't believe my partner's so not chill about farting, and the other partner's like, I can't believe how gross my partner is and they don't care about me.
Yeah. And it's all about communication, which is exactly why you guys wrote the book Sex Talk, which I go back to all the time. And it's been 2 or 3 years at this point.
It came out in 2023. Yes, it's been 2 years.
Okay, amazing. And tell us a little bit about the book and why you created it.
So everybody's heard the advice that we should talk about sex. That is nothing new. But the problem is that every time you're reading an article and you see that sentence, like talk about it with your partner, it ends there. There's no description of like, well, what am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to say it? When do I bring it up? What are the exact words I use? What do I do if my partner responds like this? So we decided we wanted to take this very generic advice and create something practical and specific for couples.
Like an actual game plan.
Mm-hmm. So we came up with the 5 crucial conversations that we think every couple needs to have in their sex life. And we put them in a specific order too. And so in the book, we really walk you through like exactly what to say, how to say it, when to say it, possible reactions that your partner might have. Like everything is really laid out for you so that you feel like you can get the courage to actually have these conversations. Because it's easy to say, talk about it with your partner, but then it's a different story when you're actually looking at them trying to figure out, oh my God, am I actually going to do this? So we wanted to give people really specific game plans of how to have these conversations.
But the really cool thing is that what's kind of underlying those 5 conversations are the categories that all 5 are in actually make up what we think are the 5 like keys to having lasting, amazing, great intimacy. And so it's not just like, oh, you really should have these conversations and it's just have 5 conversations and you're done. Each conversation, basically, we help you uncover like all the stuff that is going on with yourself, within your relationship, in that sort of category. So it's like, acknowledging or communicating about sex, connection, desire, pleasure, and exploration. And so it's like, we kind of help you untangle how all these things work in your relationship. So not only are you talking about it, you're actually figuring out how to kind of fire up each of those areas and create the sex life and the relationship of your dreams.
I love that. So I'm sure you talk to so many people, you have an audience over all of your social media platforms. What do you think right now, if you had to say, is the most common thing that you hear people say that they need to stop believing about sex?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think for most people, what they feel surprised by when they start looking at our content is how much intention needs to go into our sex lives. I think we all grow up watching romance on like TV and movies, and the sex scenes that we see over and over again. Everything seems so effortless and so natural.
Yeah.
And most of us get that in our heads that if we're really with the right person, it should just be effortless and natural. We shouldn't have to work at it. And so a lot of people start recognizing, oh, there's actually a lot of stuff that we can and should be doing. We have to create the connection that we want, not just sit around hoping for it to magically happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, having a great relationship and sex life is really just like going on a fitness journey, like going to the gym and like all the work that needs to go in to get results. Like, when it comes to fitness, for the most part, I don't think anyone is deluding themselves around like, oh, how come I can't just be totally jacked without putting in any effort or ever going to the gym, right? Like, no one is saying that, but for some reason, when it comes to relationships and sex, it's like, oh, well, it's natural. But I mean, growing muscles is also natural, but you got to do
That's
something.
a good comparison. I haven't thought about that. Yeah, your muscles are natural, but nobody sits around thinking like, why am I just naturally
Yeah, I mean, it's
muscular?
it's natural to be buff. It was natural for, kind of like cavemen to be buff because they were like always, running around and lifting, doing everything with their body. But yeah, no, I mean, we got to go to the gym, and, we got to go to the gym for your relationship too.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought you were going to say, because we've had this conversation and Vanessa was on the podcast early on. I'll link it to it because you were giving really great tips about how to get your first orgasm as a female, which we won't talk about today because Xander's on here. But early on, or on that podcast, we also talked about people think that there's a certain amount of times that you should be having sex, or you should be having sex more. Does that come up a lot now still, or more on what you're talking about, the intention?
That's always going to be one of the most common questions that we get asked too. Everybody thinks that there's this magic number. And I think most of us think like everybody else is having more sex than I am, right? So people are very fixated on that. And like I probably said last time, I think that's the wrong question for us to be asking ourselves. Because like, let's really play this out. If there is some magic number and you're like, okay, let me just try to hit it. The sex that you're actually going to be having to try to hit this quota, it's not going to be good sex, right? If you're like, oh God, I'm so tired, but we haven't hit number 3 of the week or whatever, like have to do it. It's just not going to be great. So instead, I think it's more important for us to focus on the quality of sex that we're having. And this is especially important for women because there is actual research showing that women are having far fewer orgasms in male-female relationships than men are. So if you're having sex that doesn't feel all that pleasurable, enjoyable, satisfying for you, but you're forcing yourself to do it just to hit a quota, like that doesn't make any sense at all.
I think that people are really focused on the number because they think if I can just hit this minimum, then I won't need to put in any of that extra work. I won't need to worry about like being intentional with my relationship. And I'm going to stick with the gym metaphor. It's like, you could be like, I'm sure that, someone would be like, oh, it's probably, if you want to get fit, like go to the gym, like 3 times a week at least or something. I'm making up a number, but like you can go to the gym and not do very much 3 days a week. I mean, we go to the gym.
There are a lot of people.
We go to the gym.
Like walking around.
Yeah, there's a guy that is at the gym most of the times that we are, and he's like on the phone for half the time. He does like a couple bicep curls, and he will do like, a bench press or 2, and then like he's out. He maybe worked out for like 15 minutes, but he was there for an hour. And it's like, yeah, like Vanessa was saying, that's the quantity versus the quality. Who cares how many times you're doing something? If you're not actually getting anything out of it, it's not doing much for you.
Do you feel like that's the same thing if you schedule sex?
So we love the idea of scheduled sex because to us, we think it's intentional. So the idea behind scheduled sex is it's not like, let's find the magic number and schedule that in so we make sure we're hitting the magic number. The idea behind scheduled sex is life is really busy, really full. We're tired all the time. So how can we be intentional about carving out time for us to be together, to connect? So I think that intentionality is something that gives it a really different kind of feel for me. And also, I usually encourage people to schedule quality time together rather than sex specifically. It's like create the container for it. Like, okay, we're going to connect. If we end up feeling like having sex, that's great. We've made the space for it. If we don't, that's great too, because we're having time to actually connect and be with each other.
Yeah, we like to call it, we encourage people to think of it as, oh my God, I just totally blanked.
Intentional.
Yeah, okay. We encourage people to think of it as intentional intimacy, because if you think of scheduled sex, I think where a lot of people's minds go is like, oh God, it's time, we have to do it. It's not feeling exciting. There's pressure. It's not feeling exciting, or maybe you want it, but you can tell your partner doesn't want it. And like, that's not a good situation, right? So if we think of it as, intentional intimacy that we are carving out for each other, then yeah, it's like the sex could be the cherry on top or the bonus, but it's more of like, yeah, you're creating the connection that like there has to be some kind of emotional and physical intimacy, in order to be open to having sex.
So if you had a couple that was like one person wanted it, one person didn't, at this time, at like that point, would you just say, hey, let's just be together at this and figure out from there?
Yeah, oftentimes. So first of all, I just want to normalize like all couples have mismatched sex drives, and all couples have specific instances where one person is really into it and the other person like, I don't know, like we have that all the time. People get so nervous about this, like feeling like, oh, that's a bad sign or it means there's not chemistry, but that's just being two separate human beings, right? So let's say that there is a moment where, you guys have carved out this time to be together and one partner starts getting excited and in the mood and the other person isn't. Like, I often find that if you stay in that moment together and actually have that connection, you often do start to open up to connecting with each other even more. But if one person really just is not feeling it, then that's okay too. One of the other like really important techniques that we teach couples is how to turn each other down gently. Like this is something nobody has ever learned, right? And so for most of us, initiation looks like, one partner saying, hey, do you want to have sex? And then the other's like, no, like you want to have sex right now? That's the best that we've got. And of course, like that doesn't feel very good to be on the receiving end of. So when you learn the technique behind being able to turn each other down gently, then those moments really don't feel like that big of a deal.
Yeah. So the boob honk isn't going to work, is what you're saying.
Usually, unless you are in the extremely, extremely vocal minority of our followers, probably like 1% or less of people who very loudly advocate for the boob honk.
There's always like 3 women who reach out and like,
I love it.
Like, I think it's kind of funny. And no one's ever said I love it.
Yeah.
They just say it's funny. I think it's funny.
Or just like,
or it's like, I'll take whatever I can get. Which is also sad in its own way.
I was going to say, like, is that
women are not into it.
I mean, we don't want people to say that, right? I'll take it however way I can get, because that feels like another, oh, well, they're not doing it for me, so whatever they can give me kind of thing, which can be a negative connotation.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an advocate of any sort of pity sex. Oftentimes, women especially, so many of us have been socialized to believe that like that's our job as a woman in a male-female relationship to like provide for him, to make sure he's taken care of, that his needs are met. And so a lot of women push themselves to have sex that they really don't actually want to have because they feel like they're supposed to. But that is so damaging. It's really impossible to feel desire for something that you don't feel any agency over. Like if you feel like you can't say no to something, you're not going to feel desire for it. So especially over time, it decreases your libido even more. It increases resentment. It can lead to so many issues. So don't pressure yourself to have sex if you don't want to have it.
Yeah. So you've said that desire. Let's talk about desire next. It's like something that people want or they're like chasing after. What is the truth about desire, and what does that actually mean as it comes to intimacy?
We've been talking a lot lately about I think that desire doesn't actually matter anywhere near as much as most of us think it does.
BS. Desire is BS. That's the hot take.
Hot take. Okay.
That's strong. But like, so I think most of us, we kind of similar to these dynamics that we've been talking about, like we just want desire to spontaneously happen. And a lot of us are kind of sitting around waiting, like, when am I going to feel horny? When am I going to feel desire? When am I going to want to connect with my partner?
Or like someday I'm gonna want it, and that's
Mhm.
that's when I'm gonna get to kind of like experience all this stuff.
The reality is, though, so there are two different types of desire, which we can get into in a minute. And one of the two types is not going to function that way. You're not just spontaneously going to feel desire in a random moment. But overall, I just don't think we need to put so much pressure on it. Like, we do not put pressure on ourselves to feel desire for pretty much any other activity in life. So think about, let's say you make a date with your friend and the time rolls around and you're like, oh man, I'd kind of rather just sit and watch Netflix, but like, you know what? I haven't seen her in a while. Like, I'm going to go. You'll go, right? Think of how many times people wake up in the morning. They're like, oh, I don't really want to go to the gym today, but you know what? I'm going to go.
Or I don't want to go to work today.
We don't put pressure on ourselves. Like, oh, what's wrong with me that I'm not waking up just so horny for the gym? Or like, what's wrong with me that I'm not dying to see my friend? Like, we just like, we have so much more grace with ourselves. Like, yeah, sometimes I don't feel like it, but you know what? It's an enjoyable thing. I end up feeling good afterwards. So let's go ahead and do it. And I think we can have the same sort of attitude towards sex. Now, I'm only talking about in healthy relationships where it's going to be a satisfying and enjoyable experience for you. If that's not the case, then that's a separate issue. But like in my relationship, in our relationship together, I would say 80 to 85% of the time Xander initiates, I'm not in the mood. And sometimes it's even surprising to me, like, oh, you're thinking about sex right now? Like, whoa.
After we ate that burrito, really?
Like, yeah, I used to feel really guilty about that. Like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? It would often feel like this pop quiz for me. Like he initiated and I'm like, whoa, it wasn't even on my mind. I feel like I'm like behind already. And things really shifted for me when I started recognizing like, it's okay for me to not be turned on in that moment. Like I'm a different person. Of course he's turned on in different times than I am. And so instead, we actually started changing the question around and asking each other, are you open to intimacy or are you open to being turned on? And I started to recognize like, yeah, there's so many times where maybe I'm not super turned on, but I'm open to connecting with him. And that it just shifted things so much for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, we are in a season of our relationship where, yeah, I guess currently I feel like I have a higher sex drive than I've had in a while. And, for a while earlier in our relationship, we were in a season where the roles were reversed. And I went through the same thing too, of like, and adding on, there's the added like kind of complication or layer of like male socialization too around sex drive and around being, feeling like you're supposed to be the provider when it comes to sex, right? Like us having sex is dependent on me being hard and like, me not coming too fast. And like once I'm done, it's over. And so, it was really hard for me as well, because I would be like, oh, she wants to have sex right now. And I wasn't already thinking about it. Like, can I perform? And when you start thinking about like, can I perform in a moment when you're not even thinking about sex? And there's even this like added layer of shame or guilt, like, oh God, what if I can't? Then it's really hard to get into the mood. But yeah, I same as Vanessa, I had to really shift my mindset to like, oh, okay, could I be open to the possibility of getting turned on rather than like, am I promising right now in this moment that I am going to perform in this way that is totally unreasonable? Like, there's no reason I have to perform that way in order to give her an orgasm at all. But like, yeah, that really shifted things for me. And honestly, I think that helped me desire sex more because I stopped having this negative association with like, oh, sex is this thing that could go horribly wrong. Instead, it was like, oh, it's an opportunity to feel good and feel close to my partner. And if I give myself the time I need, things go right. And then I started thinking about it more and I started wanting it more because it's like the desire is you have the desire when you start having positive things to associate sex to, when you start having good, pleasurable experiences. And so many of us are not having good experiences and being like, why am I not desiring these bad experiences?
I would actually very much relate to this to fitness. Everyone thinks they have the motivation, but you don't actually have the motivation until you take action, get some results, see your muscles working, and then you want to keep going. So it's very relatable in this sense too. So initiating then is what you're talking about here is when, one of you asks the other person if you are open to intimacy, which is, I feel like, such a great way to open this up. Do you feel like that's the real reason why it feels like such a problem or an issue? Because it's not framed that way?
Yeah, think of the question like, do you want to have sex right now? Like, want feels so strong for most of us.
Like it's a yes, no answer.
Yeah, yes or no. And again, like so think about it, like it would be so weird if every single time your partner was interested in having sex, you were like, oh my God, I was literally just thinking about that too.
I'm wildly horny.
It'd be so strange. But we initiate sex in that way, and we set the bar so high. So most people, it's just very easy to have this knee-jerk, like, oh my God, no, I'm not there already kind of reaction to it. And we turn each other down when actually there could have been a possibility of connecting.
Yeah. Mental load. I feel like that's really prevalent in this world right now. That can be a huge barrier to intimacy. How does that feel? How does that translate to some of this topic that we're talking about with, are you open to this at this point?
Mental load is such an important topic. So for anybody who hasn't heard that phrase before, it refers to the invisible mental labor that goes into running a household or a family. So there are actual chores that we all need to do as adults, like going to the grocery store. And then there's also an invisible emotional and mental labor behind that. So it's things like remembering, oh, we're out of bread and Sam doesn't eat that kind of bread. We have to get this kind of bread. And oh, there was a coupon that I have to remember to bring for the bread.
Oh, but next week I have to make sandwiches for everyone in the class for the field trip. So we need extra bread, and we got to make sure we get the right kinds of bread that, all the kids can eat. So
yeah. So mental load is overwhelming for most people. It's never ending, and it's all consuming. Yeah. Research shows that in male-female relationships, the vast majority of the time, it's the woman who's carrying the mental load. And a lot of men really struggle to understand it. Like a lot of women will hear that phrase and think, oh my God, there's a word for this thing that I've been experiencing for so long. And a lot of men, like, it just doesn't really click for them. But what we've found, so mental load is, people have been talking about it more recently, but there hasn't been anybody making the connection into how it can affect our sex life. And I think this is such an important connection to recognize. If your head is so full of mental load, it just feels like there's no space for sex. You're not going to think about sex. You're not going to feel the desire for sex. Even if you're having sex in the moment itself, you might be thinking about, oh my God, I can't forget to get to the break. I can't forget to call the doctor. Oh, I got to take the dog into the vet. All the different things going through your head. And the other really challenging dynamic that comes up around it is that if you have not figured out how to navigate it in your relationship, if you're a woman who feels like you're carrying the vast majority of the mental load, your partner is going to stop feeling like your partner and start feeling like your child. Nobody wants to have the partner that feels like their child.
Also, I think, like, going back to, you asked the question a little while ago about, like, okay, let's say that you are, scheduling some, like, having some intentional intimacy time. What if, okay, you guys do that, and, like, one partner is just like, I'm just not really feeling this. Mental load can very often be one of the things, along with some of the sex drive stuff that Vanessa was talking about. Like, if someone has a responsive sex drive, of course, in the moment, they're not going to feel, oh yeah, right now in this moment, I want to have sex. But mental load also, I think, plays a huge part in that, because it's like two very different things. If, in one scenario, you have like, okay, we have some intimacy time on the calendar, both of us are like running around the house, making sure like everything is done so that we can go into that time, being excited, we're putting the kids to bed, doing chores, or, whatever all the things are that need to get done so that we know that we can go into that intimacy time and like really focus on each other. That's scenario A. Scenario B, which I think happens in a lot of relationships, is like, okay, and we can just get really gender stereotypical here. Like, I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like, oh yeah, in an hour, we have our intimacy time. I'm going to have some sex. And meanwhile, Vanessa's like running around in the kitchen, washing all the dishes, doing all the things, like going a million miles a minute. And like clock strikes 8 o'clock. And I'm like, all right, babe, intimacy time. She is immediately going to feel resentful of me. Like, this guy's just been sitting on the couch, and I'm like, does he not see that I'm doing all of these things? So it's like, I think this is how you start to try to explain to couples like how this creeps in. Because it's like, it's not just a matter of, oh yeah, we got to get that intimacy time on the calendar. It's like, we got to figure out all the other little details that start to impact our ability to even like show up and have that intimacy together. And mental load is a huge, huge one that blocks so many couples.
As just a side note on this therapist side, Vanessa, what are some other ways that we can reduce some of the mental load as women?
We have to share it. So I highly recommend that every couple figures out a clear and specific plan for how you're managing responsibilities and the mental load together. So we did this in our own relationship too, because we got into the same sorts of places of like starting to feel angry and resentful with each other. So we just literally put a whole list together of all of the chores, responsibilities, all the things that went into each thing. And we split it up in a way that felt fair to our relationship. So it's not ever going to be 50-50, and it might change, over the course of your relationship. We've gone back and like reviewed our agreement and made updates and changes to it, but there has to be a plan. If you don't have that, you're just going to get to a place of resentment.
Yeah, and it's not only just a plan, it's like who is accountable for it, and who, we talk about kind of like what are the sort of minimum standards for what constitutes done for something. But for the most part, it's like it's splitting it up, and then it's really allowing the other partner to execute on that task and to get it done the way they're going to get it done and on the timing that they are going to get it done. Because I think that what can be really hard for a lot of couples when they initially start to split it up is, say Vanessa's been doing 90% of the stuff around the house. She already has a system for how she's been doing it. She has a way that she likes to do it, probably a way that she thinks is the best way to do it because she's been refining that way, right? And so then all of a sudden I'm starting to do a bunch more things. And I think one of the first mistakes a lot of couples make is thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to tell them exactly how to do it. And they're going to do it in my way because they know that my way is the best. And the reality is we're two different people. We're going to do stuff in different ways. And the timing is going to be a little different, but we have to just accept, okay, this is my stuff. This is Vanessa's stuff. If something legit doesn't get done, we can talk about it and figure out, okay, what needs to get adjusted. But like, yeah, it's an exercise in sort of acceptance and tolerance and being like, okay, I'm going to let this stuff go. I'm really going to take it out of the like mental to-do list in my mind. I'm going to trust that my partner can do it.
So mental load is obviously one of the big things that can hold people back with intimacy. What about confidence, body image, just low self-esteem?
Oh, the confidence has such a big impact in the bedroom in so many ways. And unfortunately, it's something that most people struggle with, and most women in particular. We've grown up our entire lives being socialized to believe that our bodies need to fit this incredibly narrow standard of what is acceptable. And the vast majority of us certainly do not fit into that. And so if you're feeling self-conscious about your body, that's going to make it harder for you to say yes to sex in the first place. It's going to make it harder for you to experience pleasure and connection, to have orgasms. And even be able to connect with your partner because your brain you're so in your own head criticizing your own body rather than being in that moment.
But yeah, I mean, I think interestingly, confidence is very much like what you were saying with motivation. It's like we think, oh, I can't do XYZ or until I feel confident. Or like one day I'll wake up feeling confident and then I can have a great sex life. Then I can, then I can be on top or, any of those things where we tell ourselves, oh, I can't do this until X, Y, or Z. But the interesting thing with confidence, just like motivation, is yeah, you're never going to wake up one day feeling magically confident. I mean, I think even people that are like, oh, I won't be confident until my body looks a certain way. When you've been thinking that way for so long, even if you do wake up one day and your body looks that way, you don't see it. Like you have no reason to be confident until you start taking the types of actions that will start to build you confidence, just like when you start to take the actions that are going to build and create the habit of motivation.
And I think you guys going to the gym together is definitely a way to build that confidence, right? Physical activity helps a lot. What other?
There's great research showing that going to the gym together as a couple is like a really bonding experience and can increase your confidence, just help you feel more connected. We do it.
We do it. Honestly, it took me a little while to come around to it because there were a couple of years where Vanessa was far more motivated around fitness than I was. And so I already, I kind of like felt a bit ashamed about that. And like, I just wasn't ready to go all in. And so yeah, there were a couple of years where I did not like Vanessa's, what felt to me like excessive motivation. But then, yeah, once I got on board, now it's really fun and I love it.
But how long did it take you to get on board, Xander?
Oh, it took me a couple more years.
Well, you're dealing with your own body confidence.
Oh yeah, I was dealing with all kinds of my own issues. But yeah, once I finally started addressing things and kind of peeling back the onion, for the last like 4 years, we've been kind of in the same, I don't know, the same fitness train.
So you guys talk about sex online. You've been together a very long time. Do you still feel like sometimes you're not that confident? You have body image issues or the intimacy isn't there?
I'll speak for myself. There are definitely times that I waver in my confidence. And I think that's really important for people to recognize. Like, nothing in life is perfect. And the intention of us sharing our tools and techniques and strategies is not that you're ever going to get to a perfect place in your relationship. It's that you're getting to a good place and that you recognize like we're all human or life has ebbs and flows. We're going to go up and down on things, but that we also feel like we have the tools and techniques to get back into a good place. So for me personally, there are definitely moments during sex where I feel self-conscious of my body. Growing up in the 90s, like I always will remember seeing the magazines and the checkout stand at the grocery store saying like, 5 positions to beat belly bulge or like the best sex positions to hide your tummy. Like that shit got into my brain. And I think about that sometimes like, oh my God, my stomach is kind of pooching out in this angle. This looks kind of weird. A cellulite visible. So like I'll have those thoughts that come up in my mind from time to time. And there are still times where I feel a little shy. There's something that I'm wanting and I like feel shy asking for it or I feel awkward asking for it. Awkwardness is another good one too. People are always like, tell me how to get over feeling awkward. And I'm like, oh, you are never going to. It's just like learning how to embrace the awkward and keep going through the awkward. But yeah, I think it's important to normalize. You're always going to have those little ebbs and flows.
Yeah, I definitely have those moments here and there. I think that the biggest difference, though, is like Vanessa was saying, I feel like we have all the tools in our toolkit that one, like we know we have the tools, they're readily accessible, and we know how to use them. We have reps using all of those tools.
You're really going all in on the gym comparisons.
He knows.
Appreciate it.
He knows it's my podcast, so he knows it's a fitness podcast.
No, I mean this is good. I'm going to bring in all these comparisons on non-fitness podcasts too. But yeah, no, it's like we actually have used them before we are comfortable with it, and so the amount of time that I feel uncomfortable, not confident is extremely short, like minuscule now. I feel like in the past, this would be something where it would be like, oh, something comes up and I'm thinking about it for days and days or weeks and weeks. And it really is legitimately impacting the connection. between us. And now it's like, I'll just have like the split second of a thought. And if it
Mhm.
persists for very long, then it's like, oh, I can talk about this with Vanessa,
Yeah.
and I can actually probably end up feeling closer with her after we have that conversation, rather than like letting this whatever crazy idea run rampant in, in my crazy subconscious.
Yeah. Actually, I have a story that I think can relate so much to this fitness, obviously. But I had a client that she doesn't weigh herself very often. She went to the doctor and she got weighed. And going into the doctor, she's feeling strong and feeling confident and she's feeling really good in her body. And then she got on the scale, heard her weight, and was like bummed.
Mhm.
And it took her, the whole day for her to get over it and be like, no, I'm actually like strong. I feel good in my body and myself. But years ago, that would have taken weeks. So the time gets shorter, right? The more reps you put in, the more comfortable you feel in your intimacy, in your sex, in your confidence, the shorter that will be. So I think that's a really cool way to put it.
Yeah, when we can shrink that time frame. We're all human.
Yeah.
We're gonna have those
Yes.
moments, but when we shrink that time frame, it makes a big difference.
I want to talk about bristle reaction because that is definitely a topic that comes up with you. I know you talked about it on the Mel Robbins podcast. Your TikTok video went mega viral. What is bristle reaction, and how can what do we do with it when it happens?
It's the term we came up with to describe the sensation of feeling your body bristle when your partner tries to touch you. So you're at the sink, you're washing some dishes, your partner comes up and tries to give you a little shoulder rub, and you just feel your body recoil.
Yeah.
Now, it's a really confusing experience for most people to have because it's sort of like, well, this is my partner. It's the person I love the most in this world. Why am I recoiling when they touch me? But the main thing that goes into the bristle reaction is that most couples in long-term relationships stop touching each other very much. We really only touch each other like directly in the lead up to sex or during sex itself. And so we start to make this association that touch is supposed to lead to sex. We create that habit in our brain, and then our body starts recoiling to it. If your partner comes up and touches you and you're not turned on and wanting to have sex in that moment, it's like your body just pulls away from it. So we wanted to help couples put a name to this and understand how to break it down, which is that we need to sever that connection that we've made that we only touch each other around sex. So actually, the solution to the bristle reaction is having more touch, but it has to be non-sexual touch. It's touch just for the sake of touch, not touch that's supposed to lead to sex.
Well, I thought Xander was going to jump on this part. He was he was leaning in like he wanted to say something. So when you are touching yourself more often, how is it something where you kind of have to be intentional with it, like the intimacy, where you kind of have to like go into it with that same thing, or are you just like naturally trying to just organically touch each other more often?
We have to be more intentional about it
Okay.
for sure. So we recommend that couples like have a conversation about it. We have a whole podcast episode of our Pillow Talks podcast where we talk about it. So it's a great episode to like listen to with your partner. It really normalizes things and walks you through what to do in a more detailed way. But to talk to each other about like, hey, I'm realizing that we're really only touching each other in the lead up to sex. I miss having more of that contact with each other. And I don't want us to feel pressure that the only time we touch is supposed to lead to sex.
Yeah. I think it can also be really empowering and helpful for both partners to have the conversation where it's like, if you are noticing the bristle reaction is coming up for you, being like, hey, I didn't realize this was a thing. I just heard this term. I just listened to this podcast, watched this reel or whatever. And I'm starting to realize that I think that I am doing this thing. This thing is coming up for me.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what's going on. Like when you're touching me, I'm not bristling. Because like the reality is your partner can feel it when it happens. It's not a fun experience. And you can say, hey, look, it's not that I don't like you. I don't love you. I'm not into you. It's that I have started to create this connection between touch leading to sex. And if there's any part of me that is not open to sex in that moment, and like when I'm washing the dishes, likely there is not any part of me that is open to sex. When I'm, in the middle of chores or whatever, like I'm not thinking about that. And so, my brain is just immediately shutting it down and being like, nope, no touch, because no sex. And I think that having that conversation can be really helpful because it is it's taking responsibility for what's going on. Because I think the other partner can feel like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong, but I don't know what it is, or my partner is not into me. And so it can really feel like it can be hard to tell like whose fault is it? And it's not that it's anybody's fault, but I think there's a lot of power in just being able to take some accountability for what is going on and put a name to it and be able to help your partner understand, oh, okay, when this happens, it's not because of you, it's because of this whole dynamic that we've gotten into. But that means that we can start to do things to unwind that.
And the reality is that most couples actually miss having that physical contact with each other. I mean, we always complain like, oh, we feel more like roommates rather than romantic partners. I miss those times when we would cuddle on the couch or hold hands or give each other like long, meaningful hugs. So we're all missing that. It's not a hard or a bad, difficult thing to add back in. We just have to be intentional about it.
So if someone is really feeling disconnected with their partner right now, what is one small habit that they can add in?
I'll give you a couple. So first, there's a 30-second hug and a 6-second kiss. So we have great research showing those are the specific timeframes that our bodies need to release oxytocin, which is what we call the cuddle hormone or the love hormone. It's the hormone that makes us feel close and connected to each other. And what I love about that tip is it's literally 36 seconds. Like no matter how busy you are, you can find 36 seconds in a day to have that connection with each other. Another tip is to make more eye contact. Most couples do not make very much eye contact. And it's such a strange thing once you start paying attention to it and realizing like, oh my God, we're like going about our days, but like not even looking at each other. So things like when your partner comes into the room, like taking a second to make eye contact with them, give them a little smile, just that little recognition, it goes such a long way.
Or even just say hi.
Yeah.
Hey. You're in the room with me. Hi.
And then the third thing is gratitude. There's great research showing that gratitude is the #1 predictor of marital satisfaction. And gratitude is free, it's fast, it's easy, it feels good to give and receive. It makes such a huge difference. So just taking that moment, and you can pair it with the eye contact even, we can multitask, but taking little moments throughout the day to tell your partner you appreciate them and you see them. Those are 3 super simple, super fast things, but they make a shockingly big difference.
So like, does a 30-second hug, are you just hugging or are you kind of caressing? You're just hugging.
You can caress if you want to, but yeah, it's just 30 seconds of hug. And it's going to feel awkwardly long at first, I will tell you that. But the cool thing about it is you will feel the moment that your body relaxes. Like at first it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. Okay, now this is getting a little bit awkward. But then if you wait it out, it'll feel like your whole body is just kind of going, oh, okay. Like you kind of melt into each other in that moment. So it's very cool to experience that actually happening.
Now, is the kiss a makeout or is it just like a peck or what is this kiss?
Whatever you want, but it's got to be 6 seconds of some lip contact.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do 6 seconds, like why not?
Why not throw
I think it might get a little weird just doing like a 6-second peck. I'm not really sure how you do that. Personally, that we wouldn't do that. But if that works for you, then do that. But start with the hug if you're worried about it.
Yeah, to be totally honest with you, I feel like peck feels like in my relationship feels very like too friendly. It almost feels like you'd probably do this to anyone. Maybe not anyone, but like I'm like I need more than that.
Yeah.
You know? Like
a little tongue action.
yeah, just open up a little. Anyways. Okay, what about if someone is has that mental load? Like is there one thing that they could do to actually like push past that?
Listen to our podcast episode.
Okay.
Just search for Pillow Talks Mental Load.
Love it.
Gotta listen to that episode to get a deeper understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, I think unfortunately there's not like just
one
thing.
Yeah,
that's one where it's like it's not really going to get better until you address it in its entirety. Yeah. So yeah, I think starting just with that podcast episode, and but there are a number of things that you can start to do pretty quickly to improve that.
Okay, rapid fire sex questions. Okay.
All right.
You can answer this as yourselves. Who on top? Vanessa, you like top or bottom?
I mean, I like both, but I like to be on bottom more.
Okay.
I'm gonna go top. I probably would have said bottom a couple of years ago, but top.
Okay, love it. So I'm gonna bring this up because I thought it was so hilarious. I think it was the video where Vanessa is like going to sit on your face, Xander, and you're like, no, give me more.
Yeah.
Is there a time where it's too much?
I've yet to experience that.
Everybody's always so worried about this, but the men or the people on the bottom are always like, keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Yeah. Yeah, we're worried because we're afraid we're gonna suffocate you. Have you ever felt like that, Xander?
I have not, but what I will say to the face sitters out there, it's called face sitting, but it's not like sit, like it's get on your knees and then sit yourself down. Like it's not like, don't sit like you're sitting in a chair where you're just putting 100%
All of your weight
on the person's face, unless that's what they're asking for. Because you absolutely could suffocate somebody that way. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's kind of like how a blowjob is like, you're not really supposed to blow. Face sitting, yeah, like use your knees. So all your weight is on your knees, and
It's tricky though, because it's not a hover. That's what most women think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just supposed to be, I'm fully holding up all my weight and I'm just like delicately hovering in the air. And like, no, the partner on bottom like wants to feel some of your weight. So yeah, it's not 100%. You're not sitting on their face like a chair, 100% of your weight, but a good amount of your weight.
So like a third, because like it's split. It's split between two knees and your vulva. So a third of your weight is on your partner's face. I mean, like, I think of it this way. If I didn't want any weight on my face, like I'd just go down on you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. True.
So like if your partner's asking to be sat on, they're looking for some sitting.
A little sitting.
What is the most underrated form of foreplay?
Emotional foreplay. Most of us think of foreplay as being a physical act, but for a lot of people, the majority of people, like feeling that emotional connection to your partner can be just as much of a turn on too. So we often do reels on our account where we talk about like surprising forms of foreplay. We'll ask people like, what's the weirdest most interesting non-physical thing? People are always saying like, giving me compliments, making eye contact with me, asking me about my day, and genuinely caring about my answer.
And then, okay, I'll give a totally different one. As a man or as a guy, personally, I will say my very hot take is that hand jobs, when done properly, can be way better than blowjobs.
That was what I was going to ask you. Hand job and blowjob.
It's a matter of technique. It's a matter of technique. Most people don't have the technique. But we teach that technique in our Ultimate Foreplay Guide. There are some very next level techniques that you can do with your hands once you are using glue too, that can really take things to a whole another level.
Okay, sex toys, yay or nay?
Okay, in general, yes, I'm a huge proponent of them. On my body, nay. And I want to normalize that too, because a lot of women are like, oh my God, I thought something was wrong with me for not loving a vibrator, not loving toys. So for me, I don't love vibrators. I'll be more specific about that. Like I can have an orgasm with them, but it kind of feels like, it's like a sneeze. Like sure, there's like some feeling of release, but it's not pleasurable for me. It also happens way too quickly. And it's just like on my unique body, I don't love the way that it feels.
Yeah, early on we played around with some like vibrating couples toys, and for me, like vibration for like 10 seconds, I'd be like, "Ooh, this is fun," and then it would like kind of start to almost like numb me. I think like the vibration kind of just like I would stop being able to feel, and then be like, "Oh, I gotta stop."
Yeah, I've heard that happen with a cock ring before too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lingerie or naked?
I like lingerie. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't always remember to put it on, but I think it's very fun to put it on. It makes me feel more confident and sexy, and I don't care that it's on for like 5 seconds. Yeah. Like it still feels fun.
Yeah, I love it. I just forget to ask for it very often.
Yeah. I feel like that's an underrated foreplay for any man. Anytime I just put something on, it's like, oh, we're doing this. I'm like, yep, here we go. Silent or vocal?
Vocal.
Ooh, you guys are both all in on that. So dirty
I
talk
think
or
people need
not?
to make more noise. We've polled our Instagram community before, and there were a shocking percent. I can't remember the exact percentage, but I think it was like maybe around 30% of people said that they're completely silent during
Wow.
sex.
100% of the time.
Yeah. And no, like we at least need to have like communication with each other. But I think that making sounds and letting yourself express pleasure, like that's such a big part of it. And actually can feel pleasurable in and of itself to allow yourself to make noise. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, it helps you kind of feel into your body. Now, of course, we always hear from people that are like, oh no, like that distracts me from actually feeling into what's going on for me. And if that's you, then great. But it is worth having that conversation with your partner, because your partner might be like, hey, you're totally silent. I don't know what's going,
Yeah.
like, is this good for you or not? Like Vanessa and I had that conversation early on in our relationship, because Vanessa tends to get a bit more quiet as she's getting closer to orgasm. Like she's starting to go more internal. And I got really tripped out by that early on. I would be like, oh, she's getting quiet. I'd better speed
Not
things up,
working.
or I'd
Yeah.
better switch position. Like she's not liking this anymore. And then like she'd be like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah. You're like, wow, this
In
is
that tone too.
yeah. Right. Now you know, Xander, do not stop. Do not stop. And I don't know about you, and I'm gonna say this. Does anyone actually like the jackhammer as a woman?
Okay, I think there's a time and a place for the jackhammer. Like it can be fun for like a few seconds.
Seconds.
Yeah, and it can be like, energetically feel kind of hot and exciting. But in general, like men think that they're supposed to jackhammer because they've seen it in porn. That's how sex always looks like in porn. In general, though, like most women do not like jackhammering. And those who do like it are like me, where it's like a few seconds at a time, that's fine. But like that's not the default movement that we're going for.
Yeah, I mean, and also for most men, like you're not going to last for very long if you're
Yeah.
if you're doing that. And yeah, but yeah, I agree. It can be fun for a couple of seconds. It's like, oh my God, we can't help ourselves. But if you want the experience to last, I would recommend against.
And don't jackhammer it like as hard as you see in porn. Like
never.
a gentle hammering.
All right, last one, dirty talk, yes or no?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, same with like the vocal thing. I think being able to be expressive is really important. And with dirty talk, a lot of people think that they need to copy what they see in porn or say stuff that feels really cheesy or inauthentic. And we view dirty talk in a much broader way, just like any sort of sexual communication. And it can, depending on your unique personalities, maybe you're more silly and goofy and playful with it. Maybe you're more romantic with it. But being able to like talk to each other about sex and describe things to each other and ask for things from each other, it's so sexy and it's really intimate.
Yeah. Do you guys have any resources on that actually?
We do. We have a dirty talk guide that we're about to retire it, but it'll still be available inside of Deeper, which is our couples membership experience.
So here's where you can talk about that membership experience.
So yeah, we just launched Deeper at the beginning of this year because we really wanted to create a more comprehensive resource for couples. We wanted to normalize, like, it's challenging to keep the spark alive in long-term relationships. It's something that we all need to be putting an active and ongoing effort into. So similar to what we did with the book, like we wanted to find a way to make this practical. So we created Deeper to be your all access hub for all of our tools, tricks, and techniques. So everything's there, but we also really lead you through the journey of identifying, like for your relationship, which of those 5 keys that we talked about earlier, which would be the best one for you to focus on first. And then we give you super simple, practical, like doable ways to work on that key on an ongoing basis. We have other fun stuff like monthly date night ideas. Once a month, we do a live double date where we talk about a different topic. We're actually doing mental load is our next one. We're really going to break it down for everybody and help you come up with a plan. And we also have Vanessa AI, which is a custom AI chatbot that we just built out. So this is your chance to have a sex therapist in your back pocket 24/7. So that late night, oh my God, something embarrassing just happened during sex, or I want to initiate with my partner and I don't know how to, or I want to tell my partner this thing, but I'm worried their feelings are going to get hurt. You can talk to Vanessa AI at any time. She's been trained on everything that I've ever written, said, taught, and she gives just incredible advice and feedback in a really private, confidential way.
That is so cool. I saw that when you guys launched that, I was like, what? She has her own bots? Like, how future are we right now?
It's really good.
It's really good.
Text with it. You can also talk to it and she'll talk back
Yeah.
to you. And
in your voice?
Yep.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
like,
wild.
yeah,
really cool.
We give it hard questions.
We've tested
and
it so much. Yeah.
Like it says exactly what Vanessa would say. It's wild.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So if anybody wants to check that out, they can go straight to vmtherapy.com/deeper.
Amazing. Where can people find you, get more information, and follow your hilarious reels?
We are at Vanessa and Xander, Xander with an X, on Instagram and on TikTok. And you can also just go to vanessaandxander.com.
Amazing. Also YouTube. I didn't realize you guys were on YouTube.
Yes.
I see in the back, you're like, isn't that the 100,000?
Yeah.
We are also on YouTube.
We're on YouTube. We just started posting videos of our podcast episode on YouTube
cool.
as well. So if you're somebody who likes to watch podcasts,
you can see us.
See us in those chairs right there.
Like right there. Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate your time and all of your knowledge, and it was awesome to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.